Today I'm going to talk to you about rank order list, focusing specifically on considerations that I think every applicant may wish to make in the creation and then ultimately in the certification of their application. Let's begin with the objectives. First, I want to talk to you a little bit about approaching the rank order list, just some general comments, and then move into some important considerations about certifying your rank order list and key deadlines. Most of this talk, however, is going to focus on applicant ranking considerations, my thoughts, and then I will also show you data that exists in terms of all applicants in the country and what they consider to be the most important things when developing their lists. And then finally end up with some discussion about how programs may rank you post-interview, focusing on things like your interview performance, your letters of intent, geographic, program signaling, the knowledge that we have at this point of some of those factors. So the first thing that I want to tell you, and probably the most important thing for you to take away from this short video, is that the NRMP matching algorithm will place you in the most preferred program possible. So you need to rank the programs in order of your preference. You should go for your REACH program or your REACH specialty, and you should never, never create your list solely according to where you think you might match because you've had a favorable interview, because you got some lovely post-interview communication telling you that they thought you were a great fit for the program. All of these things should not be used to make your decisions. Instead, you need to consider where you would really like to go. So order your programs according to your individualized strategy, which we're going to get into. Now, it probably goes without saying, I hope, that if you do match with the NRMP, your placing any program on that rank order list creates a binding commitment to enter that program if the match occurs. So don't rank programs where you're not willing and able to go. You also cannot list any programs if you haven't interviewed there. Every year, some people may do this unintentionally, thinking that they still might have a chance. But no, you cannot do that. And remember that even if there is only one program that you interviewed at, you still have to put that down on your rank order list, even though it's a list of n equals 1. Now, you also have to ensure that you are registered to participate in the NRMP match, which is not the same as the registration in ERAS. I want to tell you not to wait to the last minute to enter and certify your rank order list in the NRMP R3 system. As with many things, the servers can become overloaded at the end, and you watch that little circle going round and round the day that you need to certify, and it will just create undue and unnecessary anxiety. So I want you to make sure that your user status is listed as certified with significant time between that final certification deadline and when you actually certify. Remember, when you create your rank order list and you enter it, each time you save it, you can certify it, and you should. However, remember, if you decide to change your rank order list, you must go back in, you must save it again, and it must be recertified. They will not use an old version. If you go in, you make changes, you save it, but you do not certify it, you will not have a place in the match. So please, please, please always make sure that you've recertified and that you have that evidence that you've recertified. Okay, so I hope that's very clear. What are our dates? I think probably these are ingrained right now somewhere in your brain. We opened February 3rd for the rank order list, where people began to build and edit their rank order list, and the deadline is March 5th. at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That also happens to be not only the rank order list certification deadline, but also the NRMP late registration deadline. Now, let me say something here while I've got this slide up about when programs turn in their certification lists. You know, there may be some programs that have already turned in their certification lists, have done it early, and there are programs who have done that intentionally because they offered on-site or second look visits, and they wished not to contaminate their program rank order list with those second visits, so they entered their list, and then subsequent to that, they offered spots for people to visit. Other programs have not done that. Some program directors, especially if they're interviewing late, if it's a new program that's just opened up, that's still trying to get into the match, they're probably not going to certify their rank list till the very end. So you don't know exactly when the program is going to certify their match list. So be aware of that. It does have some implication if you're sending letters of intent, if you haven't already sent them. If you have decided to go ahead and do that, I would suggest that you do that as soon as possible, because some programs, if you get them in too late, if that letter of intent potentially has any positive effect, it will not, obviously, if they've already submitted and certified their rank list. Okay, so now let's move into rank order list consideration from an applicant perspective. The first thing I'm going to do is show you a slide that looks very busy, but I'm going to take you through it. And it's a slide which shows the 2024 NRMP Applicant Survey, so a survey that was done of all the applicants that participated in last year's match from all specialties and all applicant types, and it looks at all the program characteristics that the NRMP laid out. What this essentially did was ask applicants, what did you look at when you were making your ranking considerations? Which of these items, of which there were many, which of these items did you take into consideration? And then if you took that into consideration, how important was it on a scale of 1 to 5? So here's what we have for all, again, all programs, all applicants. You can go online because this is an interactive, it's an interactive sort of program. You can go in, you can look at all internal medicine only, you can look at internal medicine and only, let's say, lifestyle considerations. You have a lot of latitude to do what you wish. You could look internal medicine, IMG only, and and factors having to do with program quality, and it will give you what your subset of individuals felt was important to them. So it should be probably no surprise that the first thing on that list is overall goodness of fit. 81% of all applicants said that the most important thing for them was overall goodness of fit, and they gave it a 4.7 out of 5 in terms of the mean importance of that. They also, interestingly, ranked their interview day experience as being, I suppose, highly influential. And I was surprised at this, to be honest, because of the virtual nature of so much of the interview day experience. When it was in person, I would have believed this much more, but I was surprised at this. But nonetheless, many people put much stock into the day of their interview. Again, mean importance of 4.7. The next thing on the list was their desired geographic location. A little bit less important, but 76% of individuals listed that as an important consideration. Followed by, as you can see, quality of residence in the program, the work-life balance, reputation of the program, the quality of the program director, the quality of the faculty, whether or not there was an appropriate or perceived appropriate balance of supervision and autonomy on part of the residents, the quality overall of the educational curriculum, the conferences, those sorts of things, the cost of living, and then future fellowship training at that university. So those are the top, I didn't actually put top 10. These are the top 12 considerations of applicants across the country, US grads, DOs, individuals who are non-US IMGs and US IMGs. They're all comers. This is what they said. Okay, so I thought that would be a good backdrop to go into discussing what I think you should at least consider looking at. So my thoughts were really there is no category of fit. How do you fit? Fit is sort of a mishmash, right? Of after you've looked at all these things, how do you fit in? But you can certainly look at things like program quality. And as did this survey, it really starts with the program director and the faculty. What who are the core faculty, who are the subspecialty faculty? Core faculty or faculty that will have a significant role in teaching you, as well as some administrative roles on committees, on evaluation committees, etc. So who are they, and are there sufficient numbers of them? If you see a very small core faculty, that may give you pause. If you see many faculty and a wide breadth of different types of faculty with different training from different parts of the country, that may be more exciting to you. Of course, it's all going to depend on programs. Certain small programs may have much fewer faculty, whereas larger programs, urban programs, may have much greater faculty numbers. So it's not just the faculty training, but their experience. Do you see some gray hairs in there? Do you see some people who've been around for a while? That may give you some indication of the commitment of those individuals to education, and even moreover to commitment to that particular program, that hospital. What is the mentorship like? Did they comment on the mentorship? Mentorship is really important because I think that if you have strong program director, a strong faculty, and a mentorship program, that is really truly the beginning of a great program. You have to have more, but that really are the non-negotiables almost for what I would see as a really great program that probably will have a great resident culture. What is the academic commitment of the program? You should have on the websites and in other information what kind of conferences they have, board review, M&M, morbidity and mortality, journal club. What kind of simulation training do they offer? That may or may not be that important to you, and it certainly may be important to you if it's a surgical, if you're entering a surgical specialty, but that may be something to consider. And then scholarship and research, which depending on what your ultimate goals are, these become very important. Is this an institution that supports scholarship? Do they have individuals who are going to help shepherd you during a research initiative? Do they have a research block that you can take? Is there support, in other words, for these types of things, which are critical to individuals who are applying for fellowship, unless you already have a very robust list of publications on your resume. Program structure. This can certainly matter for people. What are the rotations like? How is it structured? Is there a night float system? What are the electives like? Do I have an opportunity to go away for an elective? If it's a community program and you're thinking about a fellowship, it might be important to know that they would support you to go to another institution for a month, sort of as an audition to try out and to be able to get more support for a fellowship bid. So opportunities for away rotations can be important for some individuals in some specific circumstances. What is the supervision like and graded autonomy? This may be difficult to assess, and it's probably best figured out by what the residents have to say about it. But be that as it may, that does become an important feature, because if you don't have sufficient graded autonomy, you really don't end up leaving a program feeling confident that you're able to care for sick patients. So it is surely a consideration that is important. Okay, moving on to the hospital education and cultural environment, because you have a residency program, but it's in a larger hospital, and then the hospital is usually part of a system. So in terms of the hospital, what is the pathology in the hospital and the patient care volume? Is this a busy hospital? Is it not so busy? What is that like? If you can get information about that, it would be helpful. Sometimes this has to do with the number of patients that the residents take care of on a daily basis on a given service, the number of patients they might see in their clinic. on a half a day, things like that may give you some notion about patient care volumes. Most hospitals also do publish it on their sites. They'll tell you, especially if they're busy, how many ER visits they have, how many patient admissions they have, but that may be difficult information to really know what to do with, especially given the fact that a large hospital and a smaller hospital will obviously have different numbers. What are the availability of in-house fellowships? So for many individuals, this is important. They feel as if they go to a given program and they want to do a fellowship, they might very much like to stay in the same environment, or they believe that even if they don't necessarily want to stay in the environment where they did their residency, they feel like the presence of in-house fellowships gives them more opportunity to potentially earn a fellowship. So that may be important. Some individuals would prefer not to have fellowships in a program because if there's no fellowships there, you often get to do more and have closer relationships with the subspecialist without a fellow being interposed. And then finally, in terms of the hospital, who makes up the hospital? What is their diversity like? So you're really looking at cultural, racial, ethnic, and gender diversity within that given hospital. Next on the list is really post-residency data. So all the programs will post graduate fellowship placements if that's a particular program that has fellowships and has fellowship placements. Beware of the way that they may post them, though, may not give you much of an indication. If they post year by year and you know how many residents are in a given program, then you can figure out what percentage essentially go on to fellowship, even though it doesn't tell you what percentage applied and what percentage of those who applied actually achieved fellowship. But sometimes they'll just give you a list and you don't know whether or not that list is the last 5 years, the last 10 years. So make sure if fellowship is where you know you're headed, make sure that you have as detailed as possible of a graduate fellowship placement list. What are the board pass rates? Now, the certification board pass rates in different specialties are not all available. For instance, family medicine is available. Board pass rates in internal medicine are available for residency programs. Other residency programs do not show their board pass rates. But for those who do, and you can go to the board certification site and type in residency pass rates, and if it's available, you will be able to get it. Those data are actually quite helpful. There are some programs in this country where over the years, the residents have struggled to pass their boards, and those may be programs that even if they look very lovely on the outside, may be programs where you might consider that the quality of education or something isn't working quite right if their residents aren't able to pass their boards. And lastly, employment realities. What are the employment realities in that particular program? Do they seem to hire individuals who have graduated from the program? Do they offer any kind of incentives? Residency programs somewhat are now, not all, but some of them are offering actually resident stipends to use during their time in residency with the understanding that they're going to commit then at the end to working for that institution. Generally, this is a way that they're trying to gain additional primary care doctors. So there may be incentives, and those are very nice things, especially if you already know that you want to do, you want to go into a primary care area. Okay, program culture. This is probably the most difficult thing to assess about the resident and physician well-being. Everybody puts stuff on their website. Some really walk the walk, talk the talk. Some people just talk, and really, it's when you actually get there, you find that it's a pretty toxic environment. So, as best you can, usually with inside information, people that you may know, things that are on different kind of websites that are non-official, you may find out some things about a program that would make you move that program way up on your list or down on your list. And then these are things that I think are program, or I say program fit for you and your family, as indicated. So if you are married or you have a partner or a family, these are considerations that may actually trump some of the other considerations. So for instance, the location may become very important, mostly because of what is available in a given area, in a urban area where there may be many more things available, whereas in a rural area, certainly less things. What are your housing options? What are the housing costs and the general cost of living? This may be really important if you're there as a family and you have to figure out how to pay for various things that you need. What are the transportation options? Are you going to have to drive to work? How long are you going to have to drive, etc.? Along with that, I would also probably put the safety of the area. So individuals often, especially people who are foreigners, often focus on those kinds of things. And it can be kind of misleading. I mean, if you look up, for instance, Chicago, you may find that it's not a safe place, but then areas around Chicago or pockets within Chicago may be safe. And I'm not picking Chicago more than anything else. I live in Atlanta, and you could tell me that Atlanta crime rates are very high. But in the area where I live and where many others live, that is not the case. So just be aware that you really need to look at specific areas and not at the city in general, because you can really be misled. What are the employment opportunities if you have a spouse or a partner that is joining you? Are they going to be satisfied? Are they someone who has, virtual work and it doesn't matter? Or are they going to be looking for a job? Because the job market is not easy right now. So I would certainly, those are things that become considerations. For some individuals, the insurance benefits, other kinds of stipends that the program might offer, the vacation, personal, family leave policies may be very important. Most specifically, let's say you have a child that has special needs. Maybe you need to know what your insurance benefits are. Maybe you need to know what your family leave policies are, or maybe you have older parents that live with you. There can be any number of reasons that are personal to you that could bump these kinds of things up. Anything on this list could bump it up to being really high priority for you. Climate, I always point out that some people don't realize that in the United States, we have places where there is snow for very, very many months during the year and lots of it, and you will have to drive in the snow and handle all of that. And so you might consider whether or not that's something that's really exciting for you or that's something that terrifies you. Again, in terms of making some decisions, because you really don't want to add undue stress to your residency career. The demographics of the patient population where you're going to be, if you're English, you speak English, but you don't speak other languages, and you're moving into an area or considering a residency program where 40% of the population around the hospital is, for instance, Spanish speaking, that means that probably 40% of your patients at least are going to be Spanish speaking, and you're going to have to use a lot of translators. Is that something that you're comfortable doing? So just understand the languages and the demographics in the area, and and consider that in your own personal situations. If you have children, you might want to consider the public and private schools in this country. There is you can get on various websites and look at the ratings for different schools. Again, it becomes important because a lot of people will, if they do move to an area and they have children, they may move further out and have another 15 minutes in commute to ensure that their children have good schools to go to. And then, of course, and this list is not in any particular order, are religious and cultural issues that may be paramount to you as an individual or as a family. And so I put that on the list as well. Now, the last thing that I'm going to mention is something probably nobody mentions, and it is food for thought. Okay, let's just put it that way. Food for thought is the hospital quality, the system quality. Different hospitals, have different levels of quality in terms of services. And looking at the hospital and looking at a beautiful new hospital that looks like when you walk in or when you look at the brochure that has amazing things going on, it may not be the safest or the highest quality of hospital. To try to help us, and it's an imperfect system, there are two sites that actually look at hospital quality. One is Hospital Compare, that is a government organization. It's CMS, Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, and every hospital will get a CMS star rating, which is a 1 to 5 rating, as well as a patient experience rating, and I'll talk about those in a second. So that's for every hospital in the country, and you can see I've listed the website. The Leapfrog Group is an organization, it's a private organization that looks at hospitals and gives them safety grades from A to F, so it's not 1 to 5, but it's A to F. The website is there, and hospitals can either participate with Leapfrog or not. The majority of hospitals do participate with Leapfrog, but some do not. If they do not, it's not necessarily anything bad. It just means that you don't have a Leapfrog grade as well. Typically, Leapfrog grades and CMS grades are, approximately equal, but not always. So what does it look at? In CMS, it will look at emergency services availability. It will look at readmission rates as a quality indicator, right? Because presumably, if you're constantly readmitting patients, that's not a good thing. You're either not caring for them properly, or you're discharging them too early, or you don't have follow-up services set up for them. There are many things that affect readmission rates. What is the quality of care? They look at sepsis. Sepsis is a big one now. Sepsis bundles is the hospital. How is the hospital doing for all the parameters regarding sepsis? What about healthcare associated infections? So they look at MRSA infections, line infections, etc., urinary tract infections. They look at mortality statistics. They look at surgical site infections. They look at costs and outcomes for various types of procedures. And then there's a whole area of patient experience, which really has to do with how does the patient perceive things as they travel through the organization, through the hospital. And they look at care transitions, moving from the emergency room to the floor, to the ICU and back, etc. And then on discharge, what is the perception of cleanliness, of food quality? The doctors and the nurses, do they seem to communicate well with you, with each other? What is the staff level of responsiveness when you ring the bell? Variety of things that are looked at. So all hospitals will have at least a CMS rating. If you see a hospital that has a 5 CMS rating, there's probably a pretty good likelihood that that hospital is a high quality, is of high quality. If a hospital is a level 1, I would have some concerns about staffing and a whole variety of other things that may lead to a poor rating. So I don't make a big difference between a hospital that would be rated a 3 and a 4, but I certainly would make a big difference between hospitals rated 1 and 4, 1 and 5, 2 and 5, etc. So just something else that you could consider, especially if you're looking at sort of tiebreakers, and you just want a really complete picture of things. Okay, now what about program director perspectives? And obviously, all program directors can have different perspectives. I was a program director for 25 years. I had specific perspectives. But here's what I want to focus on today. I don't want to rehash all the things in an application that are important. I only want to talk about the interview and beyond in terms of how those things affect ranking decisions, what we know about that. Certainly, the overall application, what's on your application, your personal statements, your letters of recommendation, I am not suggesting in any way that those don't impact your ranking. However, we do have knowledge of some of the things that particularly impact your rank order list, your position on the rank order list. And so let me talk you through those things. Okay, this was the NRMP Program Director Survey from 2024, and this has not changed in years, and this is critical to understand. Again, the same kind of thing I showed you for applicants. They asked all program directors from all specialties to give their opinion about how important a variety of different factors were in terms of ranking consideration, and then to rate the mean importance. The top 4 things on the list that, as I said, have not varied year to year have been your interpersonal skills, your interactions with the faculty, the feedback that they receive from residents, and your interactions with the house staff. And you can see the mean importance, 4.6 to 4.8 for each one of them. So interpersonal skills, certainly, you demonstrate certain communication skills and these kinds of things in the way that you write your application. But this is really speaking to how do you present yourself during an interview? What were those skills like? So this is probably the most impactful slide I can show you in terms of the of indicating to you the strength to which your interview performance affects ranking. Okay, now what about some other considerations? Because everybody asks me these questions, and that is why I am putting these on the slide, and these are the things that were on my list. Geographic preferences. How much did PDs think that was important? Well, 40% said that they felt like your geographic preferences were important, and it wasn't indicated whether it wasn't a geographic signal, it was your geographic preference, presumably those things that were listed in your ARIS application, with a mean importance of 4. Whether you gave them a program signal or not, and we know program signals made a big difference in terms of your being invited for interviews, although it didn't guarantee interviews, and certainly for IMGs, far from guaranteed interviews, but there was certainly a tiered likelihood of being invited for an interview based on giving a gold signal or a silver signal or no signal. But only 30% of program directors said that they considered that. They considered that in the end when they ranked people. Post-interview contact, not further specified, but presuming this means, did you write them a letter of intent? And what did that letter do to your ranking? And 18% said that it was important in their consideration with a 3.8. And then second interview, visits on campus, only 1 out of every 10 program directors said that it was important at all. So there you have it in terms of looking at some of the other things that people continuously ask me about in terms of whether or not these are considered for ranking. There is some other data out there that I'm going to share because I always try to be as complete as possible. This was a research brief that was provided again from the 2024 Program Director Survey, and they analyzed some new items related to program signaling. And this is what they had to say about program signaling. Applicants who signaled programs might be ranked, may be ranked higher compared to their non-signal counterparts. There was no numerical estimate of the likelihood that this might occur. And some program directors expressed more confidence in their ranking of applicants when they knew that a given applicant had given them a program signal. They felt like it was more likely that individual would rank their program compared to someone who had given them a signal. So that is what they said, which is very vague and doesn't really add too much, I think. The communications, post-interview communications. This was back in 2018. So this is actually not a new study, but I looked to find what I could in the literature. And this showed, interestingly, communications from applicants to residency programs were reported in 91% of surveyed respondents. So many, many people reported that they responded. Now, not everyone who was sent the survey responded, so we don't know if it was a self-selected group of individuals, but 90% of the surveyed respondents who turned in the survey said that they had indeed had communications with the program. 70% informed their top program they had ranked it highly. 78% of these applicants reported that the reason that they did it was to increase match success. So they were at least, I think, honest in why they did it. Probably 100% of these applicants felt like they would really increase their match success, but that was what they reported. So again, I think what we see is a lot of individuals who do contact programs based on some older data. This is even older data, but it's very much the same. This showed that communications from applicants to residency programs occurred in up to 94% of the surveyed applicants in this particular study. Applicants believed that such contact would improve their ranking, although there isn't strong evidence to really suggest that. And in this particular survey, they actually asked residency program directors about their thoughts as to whether or not um, applicants who wrote to them and promised to rank them number one, would that affect their ranking? And in this study, about 5% of program directors reported that they might move an applicant's position on a list if the applicant promised to rank the program as number one. There was also other stuff in this paper that said many, many, many individuals send letters indicating that they're going to rank the program as number one. So there's not great belief on the part of many program directors of whether or not this is really meaningful or not. And they tend to feel that a lot of individuals are actually not being truthful. Now, this is the last thing I'll show you, and this was actually recently in CHEST. It was for fellowship. Now, maybe fellowships are different than residencies. They certainly interview less people. They certainly fellowship interviews tend oftentimes to be very cumbersome, very long, many, many people you interview with. But this was a study that looked at the impact of post-interview communication amongst critical care medicine, pulmonary, and critical care medicine only fellowship applicants and their PDs. And what they found is that there was about 66% of the applicants had post-interview communication with the PD, and the PDs wrote to the applicants or had some form of communication with the applicants 49% of the time. So it was fairly close. Post-interview communication did not impact, according to what the program director said, did not impact their decisions for most applicants, or did not impact ranking decisions for applicants or for program directors. However, 17% of the pulmonary critical care fellowship program directors said that they moved applicants up on their rank list in response to post-interview communication. So I think what we see here is that it is certainly far from uniform. It surely involves a fraction of program directors or fellowship directors, the importance of post-interview communication. There are more and more possibilities that, that these kinds of things may be less frequent. But nonetheless, there is still possibility that this is indeed happening. So, final thoughts. I think it's important to recognize, like anything, you cannot always have a complete picture of a program that you're going to be going to, or you're going to be thinking about going to and putting on your list. You can only know so much. So you just have to craft a strategy for your rank order list that is personalized for you and you think is going to serve your interests well. Do not worry. I showed you what, what the universe in terms of the average applicants across the board, what they think is important, but those may not be what you think is important. So you have to craft your list according to what you believe are the most important features for you. List your programs in order of your preference, not based on your perceived likelihood of matching. Make sure that you utilize the NRMP website to help you with your rank order list creation and certification. There are specifics, there are videos, there's all sorts of stuff in their website which will really help you and make sure that you're doing everything accurately. Lastly, I would say finalize and certify your rank order list before the deadline. Don't wait till the end. And remember, if you go in and you make changes, you have to save and you have to recertify. And then finally, please congratulate yourself for getting this far. Doesn't matter if you have one program on your list or you have, more than 10 programs on your list. This is a big milestone to get to this point where you're actually are certifying a list and entering the match officially. I'd like to thank you all for being here today. As you may realize, I am now at myapplicationcoach.com, where I strive to provide expert medical career advice to individuals who are seeking residency, fellowship, and also those who are medical school applicants who need my support. My services include mock interviews, personal statement and ARIS review, match strategies, SOAP support, and mentorship. So I hope to hear from many of you or some of you at some time in the future. And I just thank you again for your interest and for listening to this brief or not so brief, as it turned out, video. Thank you.